Daniel and Ken today. We're just doing a little introduction for the Not Safe for Sunday podcast. This is a new podcast that we're looking to put out to share with you guys, and we hope we do get some listeners and some people that are really interested in the topics that we come up with for each episode. We wanted to talk about a little bit today about kind of where the name for this podcast came from and where the inspiration for how we got to this point to even start doing a podcast. So I have with me Daniel. What's up, man?
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm a little tired. You know, this whole 8 a.m. thing is not my strong suit.
Yeah, I could tell. You still look good though.
Yeah,
still look good.
Come on,
right?
I'm trying to keep up with you.
And I got Pastor Ken. Pastor Ken, what's up, man?
What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I just want to full disclosure. It's 9 a.m. But Daniel had to be here at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
So
Here we go again.
It's a very regular time for most of the
most world has already been up for a while.
I'm not a regular man.
This is true.
You're still a boy? Are you still a boy?
I'm a real boy.
That's all right. Young in heart, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
You
young
gotta
in
stay.
heart.
You gotta stay young.
Yeah. So we came up to collectively with the name for this podcast as Not Safe for Sunday, which I think is a spectacular name. I really love that name. The first time that Ken said it, I was like, yeah, that's it.
Had a ring. It had a ring for sure.
Yeah. And then I had to do some digging to make sure nobody else had it. So, but
I was wondering that yesterday. So does
Yeah.
anybody else have it? Have you seen it before? Heard it before?
Nope, and I haven't seen it before. There's a Not Safe for Sunday School podcast, which we are not affiliated with in any way. But
Let's clarify that off the bat.
Yep. But I guess a little shout out for them, I guess. But no, I think we're in the clear for that. So we're looking
Trademark
good.
it.
Yeah, we're gonna trademark it. We're gonna take it to City Hall and get it stamped.
A little R&D, research and development, proves that we are unique.
Yeah, it
Congratulations.
sure is. A quick Google search will do.
That's it.
But yeah, do you guys want to talk a little bit about how this name came about?
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking about doing a podcast probably since like August, September 2023. And we're like, when you first talk about things like that, you already have like pictures and visions in your mind of like day one, you're going to hit the ground running. And then like September's October, October's November. And then it becomes like, yeah, we got to do that. Remember that podcast?
That would be a nice thing.
Yeah.
That would be a nice thing.
So it's always been something that's been in our heart to do. And like, we did like during COVID, we did kind of like podcast style, like hub nights, which are our midweek services at the church, but we did it more podcast style, which was cool. And we've done like podcast style services with like panels, rather than sermons, for special sermons, Mother's, Father's Day. So it always has such a good reaction, it always has such a great response, and people love that because you can get more into real talk.
Right.
And not that sermons aren't real talk, but sermons are lectures. It's not conversational.
Right.
And in conversational, you really get a lot of raw and organic type of talk and stories and things like that. So it's just such a good thing to do, and something that, we just wanted to do, but as a lot of things can be, it just, you don't have the time, so good intentions and dreams come into like, oh yeah, remember that,
Yeah. And then it ends up on the back burner until somebody else comes along and kind of starts to push you over the goal line.
Enter Josh Rogers, baby. That's it.
And here I am, I'm pushing you over the goal line.
Answered prayer, dude.
Yeah.
That's
Answered
it.
prayer.
No,
That's it.
and it's an answer prayer for myself, to be honest with you, because I've been doing a podcast for about a year now, and God had put it on my heart kind of as I'm making I think a spiritual transition in my own life to kind of get a little bit further along in my walk with God. I just kind of felt a calling on my heart saying, hey, you spend all this time talking about whatever it is, music, movies, TV, like your hobbies. Well, really, when are you going to speak about me? Because I know you have passion and you're passionate about me, and when are you going to share that with other people? If you're free to share all these other things, why can't you do this, or why aren't you doing this? And so this kind of has become an opportunity for me to kind of be able to share that. And it's great that you guys have the like-minded hearts to say, this is already something that we're doing. It's not something that we've really pursued at this point. And now I'm just a ball of energy for stuff like this. So for me to be able to come in and kind of do my thing and say, all right, we can do this. We just have to put it all together and kind of take some of that burden and responsibility off of you guys that are so busy all day.
We're all so busy.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person who's not busy. Like, if you're actually in tune with reality in the world, like,
oh yeah,
I feel like it's impossible to stay unbusy, you know?
Right.
It's sometimes harder to make the time to just chill and relax.
Yeah, it really is. Especially if you have families and kids, like, oh man, it's like your whole day. You wake up and you don't really have a second to yourself to even think until you get in bed. You get like 15 minutes before you knock out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, you know, I was at a group and they were asking me what my hobbies were, and it's like playing with my kids. Like, I don't know what I do besides like just play with my kids. Like, I have no other life or like responsibilities. It's just like all about my kids. And I'm like, I'm not at that stage yet, but I mean, I could definitely see it vicariously through like the others' lives around me that have kids. And I'm like, man, like, I feel busy now. Never mind when kids enter the picture.
And those stages, they like change through the seasons, because you'll be for a long time, like 10 to 16, you are like the Uber driver for your kids. You know, it's just like your whole life is scheduled around taking them to sports and activities and this and that and the other thing. So it's just,
I feel like it's tough as you get older to like find hobbies, especially if, like we were talking about before, you're younger at heart. Like, I'm younger at heart, so it's like video games, comic books, like all that stuff that was great to you when you were younger. It's like those things kind of like start fading away. So you have like less and less hobbies or things that you're interested in because you're becoming interested with your kids, interested with your family, interested with your career. Like you just lose all those fun hobbies.
I've noticed such a hobby shift. Like, I went from, like video games and like staying up all night.
Right.
Now I'm like 8:30 crashing on the couch. Like, I like to put out a bird feeder in the spring. You know, I'm like transforming into my adult era, I think, is what's happening. But
well, I'm glad you said you're a ball of energy, Josh, because I'm like 48 and I'm like a ball of yarn. You know what I mean? It's pretty much where I'm at. My best hobbies are now like just finding a good nap position, you know, when I can actually get a nap.
Oh.
So, yeah, things change over
when
time.
he's napping, no one else can because he's snoring so loud.
I've heard that.
I was going to ask you,
people have said that.
How do you even find time? How do you even find time to get a nap?
I actually got one yesterday.
That's fire.
So, yeah, I just like, it's been such a crazy week. I haven't been sleeping that great either. Just for whatever reason, no specific one. And so yesterday, my daughter worked, so that helped. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I took her to work at like 3. I came home. My wife got home early too. So it's, you know, like, it wasn't like, oh, you know, let's figure out who needs to get what done, you know, with our different schedules. We were actually both home, and we both kind of felt the same way. And so, like, you know, we were just kind of just sitting on the couch, like, doing really nothing. And before you know it, like, I was knocked out.
Oh, it was a couch nap.
Yeah, it was a good. Yeah.
Okay.
That hits different.
I don't even know what a bed nap is.
A couch nap hits different, though.
See,
honestly.
Couch naps are good because you can wake up afterwards and then still function. If you take a bed nap, sometimes I wake up and I don't even know what day it is.
You're disoriented.
Yeah.
Like, everything's upside down. You're like, is it morning? Is it night?
Yeah.
Like, what day is it? Where am I?
If I'm fortunate enough to get a nap, it's gonna be a couch nap.
Yeah.
Now bed naps don't exist for me. So
I'll wake up from a bed nap and feel guilty. I'm like, I'll go downstairs. My wife's like doing something, and I'll be like, is there anything I can do? Like, I feel like I've been out for like 6 hours and it's been like an hour and a half or something like that. I feel so guilty.
It happens, man.
Oh man.
But there's nothing better than a nap.
No, there really isn't. they're rare. They get rare as you have kids and get further in your career and get more and more busy. Like they're so rare, but so sweet.
So
So
you know
sweet.
you're becoming a real adult where you're like, there's all these things I have to do, and a nap sounds so good, but I should really do all those things. You know, like, so you just don't take the nap. And it's a very sad transition in life.
Yeah. But so as far as the podcast name itself, it's a little I guess there's a little mystery behind it. Not safe for Sunday. So I know as we discussed it, we were telling kind of some stories about India, and I think 2 or 3 times Pastor Ken was like, this is a not safe for Sunday story. And that's kind of along the lines of where we want to go. We want to kind of be able to get a little deeper and have these real conversations about, well, what's life like outside of that Sunday service? What deeper meaning or deeper dive can we take into the word that might be a little cutting to some people, might kind of hurt some feelings, and I think that's kind of along the lines of where we ended up as we kind of sat and discussed this. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree?
No, absolutely. I think it's like we say, Sunday mornings is such like a quick time. It's like, all right, get in, get out. Like, you know, we got transitions, we got service, it's hard to really talk about a lot of things. And a Sunday morning service style is not conducive to being able to talk about so many topics, like just general global issues, or, you know, even intricate things in the faith that it's like, okay, you know, you're reaching such a general and wide audience on a Sunday morning. Like Pastor Ken said, it's like, you know, it's more lecture style on a Sunday morning when you're preaching. It's not conversational. So to be able to take it off of the Sunday and be able to discuss some issues that, may make people uncomfortable, but we can't avoid hard conversations and we can't avoid hard topics just because they're hard. You know, we're called to be countercultural. We're called to address these things. And so I think that this podcast style, that not safe for Sunday, it gives us a freedom to just be able to talk, have a good time, talk about life, talk about just real things in a more conversational environment, that it's like we're inviting just people to sit on the couch with us and join us in this conversation rather than, you know, lecturing to them on a Sunday morning, where both mediums are appropriate for where they're at. But just kind of cool that we get the ability to do this. Yeah.
And, you know, church is a funny place, you know, because, you know, in the Bible you have, you know, it's like the rawest book that there is. It's the totality of the human experience.
Right.
You know, in the 4th chapter, one brother murders another. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have incest in like the 15th or so chapter when Lot's daughters, you know, and their dad, and you know, you just it's the good and the bad, you know, the best and the very worst of the human condition.
Right.
But in a Sunday, you have such a broad audience, a wide-ranging audience, and there's definitely this motivation to want to try to welcome people in and, you know, challenge them, but at the same time not, you know, scandalize them or make them feel like, you know, it's weird if their 8-year-old is sitting next to them that, you know, that Sunday. So it's just, you have to know who you're speaking to and how to speak to a broad audience, but at the same time, the Bible's a book for life and for living, you know, and so how do you communicate like the deep truths of life, which can be very dirty and ugly and you know, but do it in a way that you're not offending, scandalizing, driving people away. So church is funny in that way, and definitely a podcast, you know, it kind of you know, gives you that opportunity to get into some, you know, talk about things in a way that you really can't on a Sunday, but they're no less the truth.
Right.
You know,
that's so true. That's so true. And I'm sure you would appreciate some feedback on Sundays during the service, hear people yelling back at you. I'll start yelling back from the back row.
Go
and
for
say,
it.
what do you mean about that?
Yeah.
But No, I think you guys are absolutely right, and sometimes it's gonna be harsh to some people, especially believers, like because you think every Sunday you come in here and you hear the word and you think that's it. I'm doing good enough or whatever it is. Well, guess what? That's not really how it is. It's you can come and get spoon fed every Sunday and feel good about yourself or whatever, but the Bible's not all about feeling good about yourself. It doesn't just teach you to feel good, and it challenges you at points. And Jesus was harsh. He was harsh with many people. He was harsh with his own disciples.
He was direct, very direct.
Exactly. So sometimes, like you said, you can't. If you're preaching to a broad audience, well, you don't know where everybody's at in their different walks of life and what baggage they're carrying with them as they walk through the door. And it's nice to have these opportunities to kind of break down those barriers of, well, just because we go to church every Sunday doesn't kind of mean we're these perfect people in this world and we live this life that is like spotless. No, we all have flaws. We all have spots in our lives that is what makes us human beings. You know what I mean? So it's good to have these conversations because this is a media where you can do that and you don't have to worry about just trying to reach the people on Sunday. You have an opportunity now to reach people that might not even be walking through your doors on Sunday and showing them like, hey, I'm just like you. Mm-hmm. Like I stay up all night playing video games you. Like, so I think it's going to be a good thing to kind of break down that barrier a little bit of what the world is and what the church is and kind of almost join them together, peanut butter and jelly sandwich style.
Yeah, I think sometimes to no fault of our own, there is this kind of invisible wall between the world and the church sometimes, and I think it's unfortunate, and that's the kind of the barriers we're trying to break down here. Is that we're not perfect people gathering together on Sunday mornings and just trying to be like this perfect replication. And I think that's we're just flawed people, messed up people coming to church, like learning about God to become more like Him. We're just walking and working this thing out daily, and so
of course,
we're a church of hypocrites. We're a church of sinners. We're a church of people who are just going to be messed up because we're just regular people.
Right.
And so there's nothing like out of the ordinary or extraordinary about us. It's like we're just imperfect people pursuing a perfect God and just trying to become more excellent like He is.
You're saying some good things, brother. You're saying some good things.
So I think this is a great opportunity to kind of break down. It's like breaking the fourth wall during the movie and film shooting. It's like that fourth wall. You just kind of get to speak directly to people and break down that wall.
Yeah, and I think too, most people compartmentalize faith. You know what I mean? So it becomes a separate thing in my life rather than it being everything in my life. You know what I mean? So if the Bible, which, you pull people on the street and it's like, oh, it's a holy book, or it's a book about this or that. But it is really about living, you know what I mean? And you learn as much about God's character, I should say you learn as much about our character as you do God's, and the human condition. Right. And so if it's a book for living, it needs to be, there needs to be, it needs to transcend every area of my life. And if religion or faith is just compartmentalized, it's like, how does this affect my daily life? Not just my Sunday morning. How does this affect? And again, that can be ugly. It can be dirty. It can be tough to talk about, but it's life. You know what I mean? And how many people have major questions about life and living that they should be able to, go into the church and get the answer.
Right.
But, it's like, it's taboo. You can't talk about that.
Yeah,
so, and in some in some way, no, you can't necessarily talk about it on a Sunday morning because of my, previously mentioned point about your broad audience and all this stuff.
Right.
But you still need to be able to talk about it. And so not safe for Sunday is not a cop out of like, oh, it's like, Sunday's Sunday and then this is this. No, it's the same thing.
Right.
It's the same book. It's the same conversations, but it's just had in a way that, You know, it can be
More raw and unfiltered.
a little bit, unfiltered, and communicate in such a way that it can kind of peel back a little bit of some of the talk that maybe, you know, your non-church goer can understand, you know, because we also talk in weird languages in church too, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
no.
Christianese, baby.
we have Christianese and you know, and so your average person doesn't understand those things.
No, you're right. Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. Right on the head. There is a whole other language that believers can speak at times, and different churches can do it in different ways.
Yeah.
I think being here, that's a little more. You've peeled back some of that and made it a little more clear. But there's even more, and that's me already being a believer.
Yeah.
There's even more that we can peel back, and even more that we can show. Like, hey, we're just regular people. Like, no need to be afraid of us. Like, we're not coming out here to judge you or anything like that. Like, it peels back a lot of that stuff, and you can also show that the Bible. There's also some funny moments in the Bible. There's also some comedy. Obviously, there's everything else, but the part that we kind of miss sometimes is funny. Like, I was thinking the other day. I think you preached on it. Is the woman at the well. Jesus roasts her so hard at that well. Like, she asks him, which temple do I go worship at? And he tells her, go home and bring your husband and I'll tell you. And she says, well, no, I don't have a husband. And Jesus comes with like the roastiest roast of all time. He's like, yeah, that's right. You don't have a husband. The 5 other men that you had are no longer your husband. And the man that you're with now is not your husband.
Yeah.
Like, he starts roasting this girl and she's like,
out.
oh, actually, this guy's great. Like, it's funny sometimes when you dig a little deeper and you really like take the context and you're like, I'm like, geez, relax, Jesus. Like, you're going a little too hard on that woman.
Yeah, no, and I think we lose the fact that like God has such a sense of humor too,
Right?
And most people would never think that, you know what I mean? He's just the old guy in the sky, and he's just like so, you know, ready to like strike down or you know ready to like correct and and he really does. And when walking, you know, just with God and just an everyday relationship, you know, it's like you get to see that. Right. You know, you get to see that sense of humor because sometimes you just have to like shake your head and you're like, you know, certain circumstances that happen or whatever, and you're just like, are you serious right now? You know, like so. No, it's life,
right?
You know what I mean? And it's definitely all of man to you know want to compartmentalize that and like build that up as something else and something that's kind of secluded and separated,
right? You
know, and because you know. If you're religious, you know you're kind of good and holy, and if you're not, you're just kind of sinful and dirty. And in Jesus, you have this, you know he. And I think I'm actually going to talk about it this Sunday. You know, is that like Jesus let sinners get close, even touch them. You know what I mean? And man's religion is so opposite of that, where it's like, no, you're over there and I'm over here. I'm holy doing holy things, and you're dirty doing dirty things. And Jesus is like, no, sinners. You know, in Luke 7, the woman, you know, who crashes the dinner party to wash his feet with her tears, you know, it's like he let sinners get close to touch him.
Right.
And so it's a lesson for us too that, you know, again, this is just life. You know what I mean? People are dealing, all people are dealing with incredible, you know, incredibly challenging things and difficult things for one reason or another. Maybe it's self-inflicted. Maybe it's just what was impressed upon them. But one way or the other, they need God, you know what I mean? They need to have their sin cleansed,
right? And
they can't do it by themselves. Nobody can,
right?
You know. So Jesus was really just a very regular guy in regular circumstances, talking to regular people,
right? And
like, and to me, that's like the biggest compliment I ever get is when people like will come here and they'll say like, you know, like, wow, you're just really a regular person and like down to earth, you know. And I'm just like. You have no idea, you know, just how regular, you know, like, you know, it's like, you know, as a pastor, it's like, we're not just like this, like other species, you know what I mean? Right. It's just like, we're just doing life like you.
Right. And I think the most toxic form of Christianity is the Christianity that is that holier than thou. it feeds into everything the world already thinks that we are. It's like and I think you see that over time as Christians stay in the faith longer. I think there's this default to becoming more comfortable and actually completely they take the not of this world to a whole different degree where it's not of this world, but it's almost to a segregative mentality that I'm so not of this world that I actually can't stand anybody in it. When it's like you miss the entire gospel point. It's like, yeah, Jesus was not of this world, but he was the most loving, most integrated, most involved in his culture and community and context, going and pursuing people. I mean, crossing the Sea of Galilee to go after one man. I mean, so as Christians, I think the more comfortable we get, the more toxic the Christianity can even be, because it becomes more segregative. It's like, oh, like those are unholy people doing unholy things. It's like, if you've lost the view that you're a messed up sinner in need of God's grace just as much as anybody out there, then you've lost the point of the gospel already. You've become way too comfortable.
And you skipped all the parts where Jesus is doing everything contrary to like what the spiritual leaders at that time were doing, and pissing all those guys off to the point where they literally had to kill him. Like it was you're missing that. Like that's all he was among the people, and then pissing off all the churches that were or temples, whatever it was at those times. Like all those guys were trying to catch him up and trying to tell him, hey, you can't do that. That's not how we practice our religion. Like, yeah, I can. Like, I am the Christ. I am the Son of God. This is how we should be. We should be part of our communities. We should be in these different regions and these different areas, bringing my Father's word to everyone. Yeah. Not just to you and your temple and the way that you do things, to the entire world, the way that I do things. And that's with love. And that's what we got to remember. You're right. It can get very toxic. And I think those are the things that stick in the non-believers. They see that toxicity at times, and it sticks in them, and they're like, nope, that's how you do it. I don't want any part of that.
I would argue to say that probably the non-believers who are most aggressive against the faith, it's because they've had an encounter with a hypocrite Christian who has judged them and rebuked them and shown no love for them at all. And that's been their one interaction or their one testimony to what it means to be a Christian. And so we have to model after Jesus and become countercultural in that sense, where it's like, no, we're going after, we're pursuing, we're with sinners, you know?
Yeah. I was just going to say that in, I think it's Luke 12, where Jesus starts out the chapter and he says, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. He's talking about hypocrisy.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's talking about hypocrisy, because beware of that yeast, because once it gets in, it permeates the entire loaf, just like yeast does. You know what I mean? Yep. And so he's like, you got to beware of that, because pride is, really our greatest downfall, and the thing that's always lurking in the corners, for all of us. I don't care who you are.
You just hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
You just hurt me a little bit.
It cuts.
And pride is what leads to self-righteousness. You know what I mean? Like, I'm somebody, I'm special, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, no, the fact of the matter is that, it's truly only by grace that we can have relationship with God, that we can have peace with God, that we're forgiven. And to think of yourself any higher than anybody else, is just that's that yeast. You know what I mean? And before you know it, it's going to permeate your whole life. It's going to permeate your group, your social circle, and you're going to be elitist, and you're going to be separatist, and all these things. Yeah. And now there's no gospel, because gospel is through relationship. It's always through touch. You know what I mean? Right. And it's like, it's not about great sermons and lectures. Yeah, that's part of it. Obviously there's got to be teaching and equipping, but the gospel itself and discipleship is through relationship. And how can anybody possibly see the Jesus in me if I don't let them get close? Right. They can't touch me. You know what I mean? They can't be in relationship with me.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And even Jesus' own disciples started to get that little pride and say, oh, who's going to be greater in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus had to shut that down really quick and you need to relax. It's the least of you that's going to be the greatest. So absolutely. You do your best to be a loser, and then you'll be a winner in heaven. Yeah. So 100% right. 100% right about that.
And just in a practical sense, like I've always found that like the people that others warn me about are the people. There's just something in me that's saying like, just go grab them close. You know what I mean? Just whether it be coaching, you know, my kid growing up, or just whatever circles I'm in, definitely outside of church. I'm talking about, you know, in the daily routine of life, you know, and it's like, oh, don't have that guy come and help you coach. He's a problem, you know. He's this, he's that, he's difficult, and it's just like, I don't know if it's the rebel in me or what, but it's like, if you're saying like, don't you dare go close to that guy, he's a mess. There's something in me that's saying, I want to know why. You know, I don't want to bring that guy close.
Right.
And there's been some examples where, I mean, yeah, they were right. Guy was a problem, but he also just never got unconditional love either. And once he saw that, you know, it changed him. And then, you know, long story short, guys called me one night at 11 p.m. His house got broken into, you know, his family's a mess. You know what I mean? His kids are crying. They can't sleep. He's like, can you come pray for us? Can you come pray over our home? Wow. You know? And that's the mess. That's the problem that everybody warned me about. Don't, he's a problem. Don't bring him close. Don't bring him close. And Jesus was all about bringing problems close. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's like, I like problems. You know, he called 12 of them. You know what I mean? 12 problems to be his followers and to go change the world after him. Right. And so, you know, we just can't lose sight of that. You know what I mean? And if we're not able to bring people close because we're too good or better than, you'll never see the gospel lived out, you know? Yeah,
that's a tough thing to do, too. It's tough to get that preconceived notion about what somebody is out of your head when somebody starts telling you, oh, yeah. But it's very much, you need to show me who you are. That's how I feel. Like, you can tell me, you can talk about yourself, you can talk about anybody else, you can pump yourself up, you can tear other people down or pump other people up. It's not until you show me who you are that I can see for myself, okay, yeah, this guy is a problem, or this guy, and then figure out what they need. Like you said before, this guy never had somebody to give him unconditional love. And that's what Jesus says too. It's not about what you say and what you do. It's about your works. If you have a good heart, your works will show that. So, but sometimes people do need a little kick in the butt or a little, hey, come on, I love you, like, and understand what that love is and feel it, because not everybody has that on a daily basis. Not everybody's getting that from when they're raised. So, and
part of that unconditional love is those tough conversations. You know, sometimes people are such problems, they put up such walls that nobody even just really wants to have a real conversation with them, and they just want to avoid them or placate them or whatever. So unconditional love, and that's some of those, you know, situations I'm talking about where it's like, yeah, I had to have tough conversations, but it wasn't an end. It was a beginning. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I can love you. I can be unconditional, you know, love you unconditionally enough to tell you the truth, you know, not sugarcoat it or avoid it, but yet still bring you close and embrace you afterwards, you know, still do life together, still, you know what I mean? And that's not our world. And that's definitely not like the typical religion.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about countercultural, man. Accountability, and confrontation. And let me tell you where I struggle, man. Confrontation. I will avoid it, like close my eyes and walk the other way so I don't see it. But, you know, God, you know, Jesus was confrontational. You just talked about the woman at the well in John, John 4. It's like that is confrontation at its finest. But look, I mean, she responds and she ends up engaging in that conversation about living water, you know, because Jesus confronted her behavior, confronted her sin, and he didn't do it in a judgmental way, but just saying like, you know, if you would have asked me, I would have shown you the living water. And she's like, what? Like, and that conversation really started out of him talking to her and bridging the countercultural gaps. I mean, he was a Jew talking to a Samaritan woman. Like, Jews and Samaritans didn't engage, never mind women and men, and then even a religious teacher and a woman in the middle of the day, you know, like that wasn't allowed. But Jesus was so countercultural. He went up to her, he confronted her, he talked to her, he bridged those gaps, and she was accepting of the confrontation because she knew that his confrontation in love wasn't judgment. It was accountability. And I think accountability is one of the most loving things you can do for somebody. Because if I'm walking out my life like a hot mess and no one's calling me out on it, especially those in my life who are close to me, who are leading me, who are walking life out with me, discipling me, or, you know, husbands and wives, like if we're not holding each other accountable in love, I mean, we're just letting everybody walk blindly into disaster. I mean, what kind of love is that, really?
You're right. And I think part of the issue we have sometimes with confrontation is we start making this preconceived notion in our heads of how this person, if I say, Daniel, you're messing up. You're doing this X, Y, and Z. I start creating this preconceived notion of this blowout argument that you and I are going to have. And yeah, you're right. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to have that blowout argument. They don't want to have that confrontation with that person. But sometimes maybe if I say that to Daniel, he's going to get a little introspective and kind of be like, oh yeah, you know what? I am kind of being a jerk. I am kind of doing this wrong or whatever. So we shy away from having those tough conversations with people just for fear of how they're going to respond. Well, if you're acting out of love, if you're acting out of grace and you're saying, hey, by the way, this is what's going on, and then you're able to just kind of break down that barrier and say, all right, whatever comes is going to come and we'll be able to get through this together. That just tears away that entire like fear of that conflict, that argument, all that stuff. So yeah, no, you're right. There's a ton of people out there. You're not uncommon.
I found that like 11 times out of 10, when I avoid conflict, it's worse in the end.
It always is.
Absolutely.
And my accountability partner over here for conflict on the side of me, you know, we came up with a little saying this year. That was our goal. We finna piss everybody off. We're doing
really good.
I think we're doing pretty good, better than most, some would say. So,
we're doing really
you know,
good.
But that's just it's just a funny way of saying, like, you know, we're going to do our best to just hold each other accountable.
Right.
Like, finna piss everybody off starts with us, you know, like holding each other accountable.
Right.
And then from there, really, it's avoiding. You know what I mean? Like, being avoiding of avoidance. And that's the key.
And that's really been my goal with you since I've known you. So
yeah, 100%. You have finna pissed me off every year.
It's my like all year resolution with you.
All life resolution.
You know, when you talk about roasting and like, you know, I see the connection with you know, what Daniel just said about accountability and just being real with people, because even in a spiritual way, you know, like when the woman engages Jesus like with a spiritual conversation, because she's like, oh, this guy's spiritual, you know, and she's like talking about, well, what mountain, you know, should we worship on? Because, you know, we think it's this one, but you Jews, you know, think it's that one. And he just was like real with her. He's like, well, you Samaritans don't really know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, you Samaritans don't even know what you worship.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But, and it's like for us, as we have the truth, you know, and I think where we struggle is how do we present the truth in a non-pretentious, like overbearing way, you know what I mean? But sometimes I think we really we err way too much on the side of caution. You know what I mean? Like spiritual things come up and somebody be like, oh, you know, everything's God, you know, that tree is God. And you know, and all these different religions, it's all, and we just kind of like smile and be like, you know, and are afraid to say like, no, you know, like, here's what the Bible teaches about that. Right. Because they're looking for direction. They're looking for truth and authenticity. They've been given this hodgepodge of just, you know, stuff. You know what I mean? They don't know what to believe.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, again, like Daniel said, Jesus was just like, he wasn't pretentious or doing it in a way to push people away, but he would never shy away from the truth, what had to be said. And he did it in love, you know, and the difference with him is that, again, he would let people get so close where we'll do it from a distance. You know, I'll preach you my truth, but stay over there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Stay in your lifestyle, stay in your mess, stay in your ghetto, stay in your neighborhood, stay in your whatever. And Jesus just, instead of trying to say, well, if you want to finally get it, come to church.
Right.
He went there.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but that gave him the authority. You know, what did everybody say? This man speaks as one who has authority. But his authority came from the love that the Father gave him.
Right.
Because he would go and speak the truth, but it wasn't just from like an academic standpoint. He did it because he proved it in love by going to where they were and meeting them right where they were at.
So true.
So he had the words, but he had the love, and he had, you know, the boldness to go meet them in their context, and that gave him great authority.
That's so true. That's so true. And he didn't have that fear of rebuttal. Okay, yeah, what if there's pushback? He wasn't afraid to say, no, this is what the Bible says. This is what the word says. Like, this is what my Father says. He wasn't afraid to push back and say, no, you're wrong. I have the truth. I am the truth. You're wrong. The way that you're looking at it is wrong. And then trying to change their hearts because he's in their neighborhood, because he's showing love to those people.
Yeah.
It gave him that opportunity to do those things.
Well, I think the biggest fear today, just like culturally, there's been such an atmosphere that like you can't offend anybody. But guess what?
Everything offends everybody.
The truth offends.
Right.
You know, the truth is offensive.
Right.
Because if the gospel wasn't truth and it didn't offend, then it wouldn't counter our sin. And our sin should be offended. We should be, you know,
keep going.
Those places in our life that were hidden and that are broken, like those places should feel offended. That's conviction, because when truth meets our sin, there's conviction that should happen, that should want to cause change. Because if our gospel isn't offensive to our sin, then it's not the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know? So I think for fear of being offensive, Christians have erred, like Ken said, have erred on the side of caution. And it's like, you know, Jesus didn't err on caution. He erred on truth. His whole foundation was truth, and he just spoke that in love. And look at how it changed the world. Here we are, you know, 2,000 years later, and we're here standing on that same truth that Jesus stood for. So why are we scared of offense? You know, this cultural movement of offense and everybody being offended and we can't offend anybody. Like, you know, Jesus wasn't scared to be countercultural. And in that, his truth stood and endured the test of time because it was the truth, you know?
Right. No, that's so true. That's so true. Everybody is afraid to offend anybody. So it's to the point where you can't even say anything.
Yeah.
Like we sometimes feel like we can't say anything anymore because we don't want to, if it's at work, we don't want to make that trip down to HR and get the retraining of acceptability or whatever it is. Like, you don't want to do any of those things, but you're right. If it's the truth is the truth. And sometimes even in my job, like, when I have to deal with a customer, you might not like what I'm telling you, but it's the truth nonetheless.
Yeah.
And you can still walk away pissed off and be upset with me or with the company as a whole, but that doesn't make what I'm telling you any less true. And that's how it should be for the church. The truth is the truth. If it offends you, I'm sorry that you feel offended, but this is what it is. And if we're doing it from a place of love, like you said before, maybe it will take a little of that offense off. Maybe it will start chipping away at those walls that people put up in their lives, so that way God's love can shine through.
Let me tell you, I was a teacher for the last 6 years of high school students. And
Tough job.
Loved it though. Let me tell you, the best part of the job was the kids.
Right.
Like, it really was. The politics of education and the chaos therein
No
is,
good.
you know, that's not the fun part. But the kids, man, they made it. Let me tell you, this generation, as much junk as they're being fed from social media and from influencers and from all this stuff, like, these kids, they just want authenticity.
Right.
They are so sick of the baloney. They're so sick of the crap. They don't want to hear any more lies because that's all they've been fed is exaggerated lies. And they really do want authenticity, and they want someone to be true with them. I had a cry counter on my on my whiteboard every day. It's like 0 days since the last cry.
Oh.
And it stood at 0 days for like 180 days of the year. Like, because there would always be somebody in there who would be crying. And it wasn't because I was a jerk, but it was because they would sense the authenticity. I would get to know them and build relationship with them. They would open up about their life, and I would just share truth with them. You know, I wouldn't be afraid to have those conversations with them and show them real love. And, you know, being a public school teacher, I was limited and I couldn't really preach the gospel or share the gospel audibly.
Right.
But how did I do it? I did it in love. I did it in how I loved and how I approached these kids and just showed them that I cared about them. And that has spoken tremendously. Now, I have students that are coming to the church because after they graduate, they'll add me on social media and they'll see what I'm about, that the gospel really is the foundation for my joy, for my truth, and for my love. And it points them right to Christ just in all the actions of showing them love. And they're sick of inauthentic relationship. There is a hunger and a thirst, despite what's like social media and news outlets are saying. Like, there is a hunger and a thirst for truth and authenticity out there because it's so rare in today's society.
Be 100.
Yeah.
Be 100.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Give me
Yeah.
100. That's all I want. I
Mhm.
want the truth. Be real with me.
Yeah.
Be real, and that's all we can do.
And that's what I think this podcast is kind of aiming to do, is like cut to the real, raw, unfiltered, unadulterated, just truth and reality that, you know, we're just real people. We're real people living this faith walk out. You know, we're messed up and we mess up every day because that's just who we are. We're not Jesus, so we're not perfect, but we just strive to be like him more and more every day. And, you know, if we can have real conversations here and invite people into this setting where they can join us in this conversation and be edified by it, then by all means. You know, I know that I have grown so much just in being in relationship with this guy on the side of me and being real and having these conversations. So if anybody else can be blessed by that and the fruits of that and the conversations we're going to have through this podcast, I think that's really the goal, is that we would cut to the heart of what it means to just be like a real person living in a real world and walking out real faith.
Right. Because we all have to live in the real world.
Yeah.
We all live in this real world. And, we can compartmentalize and kind of separate. But at the end of the day, we still have to go walk out these doors, go to our real life, go to our real job, go to deal with the real problems that we have in the world, and then come back here on Sunday, pretend like those things don't happen, and then go back out and do it all over again. Like, you're right. It's we live real lives. We're in the real world. We are real people with real problems on a daily basis. Instead
of separation of church and state, it's like separation of church and life. And like that, I think that's what this podcast trying to bridge and cut through, is like, there isn't a separation of faith and life. Those things need to be walked out together, like Ken was saying before.
Be 100.
That keyword integration from out of the fourth place.
Yes.
Use that word a lot.
Yeah.
Because that's where it's at. Because church as we know it, is just showing up somewhere on a Sunday, is like, it can be very much like fairy tale, like life, because it's like, I just need to go to that place where everything's peaceful and everything's this. And I get my fill up and I can get some relief from my problems and all that. But then I have to go out the other, 98% of the week, you know what I mean? And actually live.
Right.
So it's like, where's the integration, of the peace, the joy, the challenge, the resolve, the conflict, the conviction, all the other days of the week, you know what I mean? So if there's no integration of this Christian life into my life outside of the church, it's pointless.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just getting an hour and a half, whatever it might be, just getting that that relief. And if that's enough, okay. But I don't know who that's enough for. You know what I mean? It's not enough for me.
Right.
I know that.
Well, people that are fooling themselves, to be honest with you. It's just people that are fooling themselves into thinking that, well, I did my good deed for the week. Let's go out, do our thing, and we'll come back next week, do my good deed for the week, and that's just going to cover me. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Absolutely. Stuff, man. Good stuff. Great. I think this is a a good intro, man.
Great.
Wish we just had people on this podcast that like to talk.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're gonna really struggle.
No kidding. How are we gonna fill an hour's worth of content? 45 minutes worth of content.
I think we're gonna have to, it's gonna be like, how are we gonna fit everything we gotta say in an hour? Is more like it. We're at 50 minutes already. It's like, geez, that flies by.
We're gonna have to be like Dune and break it up into like 3 or 4 different movies.
Yeah, part A, B, C, D.
Yeah. Any last thoughts and last words?
Yeah, keep them sci-fi analogies coming because, as Daniel knows, I'm like huge.
Ooh.
Like,
Ooh.
now I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, are you? Oh man, you got me all excited. I'm like, I love it. We could do that all day.
Listen, I'll stick to my Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, love Lord of the Rings.
Thank you.
We can talk Lord of the Rings on the pod.
Thank you.
I quit.
Hey,
I quit the podcast on the first day.
on the flight from
Boston
to Dubai is a 14 and a half hour flight. No, I was Dubai to Boston. It was on the way home, didn't we?
No, I was on the way there. It was
12
hours
12
Boston
hour
to Dubai.
So Ken's been on me like to watch Kung Fu Panda and Ratatouille.
Okay.
And
wait, hold on. Time out. You have not seen those movies?
I have not seen those movies.
Oh, okay.
I have
Thank
not
you.
seen those
Okay.
movies. I had seen bits and pieces of Ratatouille. I had never even watched anything about Kung Fu Panda. I just used to watch the hard edits that the kids would play in class. We'd be done with our assignment and they'd pull up these hard edits of, Kung Fu Panda.
I showed a clip of Kung Fu Panda in one of my sermons one time.
I remember that.
That's awesome.
And
Is it the peach tree?
Yeah, that was it, wasn't it?
no, it was there's no secret ingredient. There's no special
Oh,
ingredient.
yeah.
Dang it. But so on the flight there, I traded him. I said, he had watched Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers, but he had never watched Return of the King. I'm like, how do you skip Return of the King? What's wrong with you?
God forgive me for the judgment I am feeling over
Yeah.
here.
You don't even want to hear my review then. But.
Oh my
No,
God,
I don't.
I'm heartbroken.
You keep that to yourself.
So I traded him. I said, you watch Return of the King because it was on the in-flight entertainment, and I'll watch Kung Fu Panda and Ratatouille. I'll make you a trade. And so he took
It's
me
an
up on
equal
it.
amount of time for him to watch those two
I
movies.
watched
It's a long
Ratatouille and
movie.
Kung Fu Panda. He watched Return of the King. We both finished around the same time. I think he actually had a little bit more time than me left on the movie.
I think I did.
And so that was
My
nice.
honest review, it was a pretty good movie. Two Towers was better because Return of the King, it was about, you could have cut out 45 minutes of that movie and it still would have been fine. They too much fluff, too much like wasted time. Like the whole Frodo Sam journey was just ridiculous, and
that took 3 whole movies. So
the spider scene was like at least 25 minutes by itself.
Sheila, bro.
That you could have cut out. Like it was just pointless. Like
all right, hot take. Who is the hero? Is it Frodo or is it Sam?
Oh, 100% Sam.
Sam. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
No, 100% Sam.
Okay.
I don't even think that's a hot take. I mean, the
Frodo's-
hot take would be saying Frodo's the hero.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see.
Frodo's a weenie in that movie.
It is. It's a shame.
And like,
it was a tough burden to bear.
I'm gonna have to like go home and take a scalding hot shower just because I'm having this conversation. Like I don't even know who I've become.
Listen, I'm Frodo. He's Sam.
Okay.
That's how this relationship
Sam
works.
Wise.
Yeah, Sam Wise.
100%.
That's so good.
It's not Ken Dog. It's Ken Wise.
We're gonna end it. We gotta end them all like this. Talking Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I love
please
it.
no.
How about the Hobbit? You watched the Hobbit?
No, that's a shame. That's a shame. I
yeah.
wasn't a fan.
But like the original, like animated, like Rankin and Bass.
Oh
Hobbit.
yes.
Love
Yeah,
that
that's
movie.
classic.
That's like one of my favorites
I
of all
watched
time.
that
No, that's
and
so
read like the kids probably version of it and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's classic.
That's
but
so
the new movies are such a disappointment.
Oh man, this is a good place to end.
That is.
All right, guys. I hope
We took an unexpected journey.
We did
Oh
take.
my god.
Boom, boom.
Thank
me
you.
out of here.
Thank you.
He'll be here all week.
Close it now, Josh.
Fellowship of the
Close
pod.
it now. End it now.
All right, guys. We appreciate those who have listened in, and we hope we've kind of poured out into your lives a little bit, and we do hope you'll join us each episode as we go through this together, and we really have these conversations. So until next time. The Not Safe for Sunday podcast was recorded at Conquerors for Christ Church. This episode was produced by Spencer Berriman. If you like what you've heard, you can follow us on social media at NSFS Podcast. If you'd like to join us for a Sunday service, you can find us at 972 Reed Road in North Dartmouth, Massachusetts.